You all ready to go, Captain?
Yes.
I will call this regular council meeting to order. If you'll please stand for the pledge, please. Mr. Rath here tonight. Would you lead us in the pledge, please, sir? Bob? Go ahead.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You remain standing for a moment, please. Heavenly Father, on this beautiful summer day, we thank you for the success, the good weather, and the absence of any issues at our Independence Day celebration over the weekend. We ask, Lord, that you keep us all safe and sound with the upcoming holiday this weekend, and we ask that you give us the strength and wisdom tonight to discuss respectfully and make good, sound decisions for our city. And we ask for all of this tonight in your holy name. Amen. Hey, Kathy, roll, please.
Carter. Here. Walter.
Here.
Howe.
Here.
Barstow.
Here.
Hayes. Here. Picken.
Here.
Lee.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum present tonight. If you notice, the swear jar is back. I've been bragging the last couple of years to anybody that will listen that our council meetings are very respectful and a lot of good discussion, and I don't want that to ebb away. So just a quick reminder to please be respectful when we're having discussion. First thing on the agenda tonight is citizens' comments, and if you haven't spoken before, we need your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak. Anybody wish to speak tonight? Yes, sir.
We good? Okay, I'm Tim Barrett. My address is 575 Richmond Drive in Pataskala. It's part of the Jefferson Meadow condominium group. And I'm not here to address any agenda item, but rather something that I hope does become an agenda item in the very near future for you. On the 5th of June, the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously turned down the traffic corridor overlay district study for a parcel of land, 6.88 acres, just east of Watkins Road, north of 16. And with that, although the letter of the law, under the letter of the law, certainly they could have approved that. They turned it down unanimously because the spirit of the law was not that 44 multifamily units be put on about 4 acres. Rather, when it was rezoned to its current zoning, it was for condominiums at about 4 per unit. Mid-Ohio Development Corporation owns that parcel. They're in contract with, but it's not being completed with Jason Heitmeyer to develop those 44 apartment units. The spirit of the law was truly upheld at the June 5th meeting. I want to encourage all of you to reconsider an ordinance to rezone to either low density, no more than 4 with that stipulation, or single family residential. There is a outlier still before the Board of Zoning Appeals for a lot split. That comes up next week. That lot split would be for no other reason than to move forward with those apartments. Again, I encourage all of you, and next week there'll be quite a few folks, I'm sure, representing all the properties around at that meeting, to reintroduce an ordinance for rezoning. Or my fear is that it will continue to come up before you. It will continue to be a problem. And right now, with the way the roads are structured, there is just no way that the traffic which would be produced by those additional 44 apartments, the roads could handle. All of you know, I'm sure, that at some point you're going to have to take a look at what to do with the intersection of 16 and Watkins Road. Any of you who've been there during rush hour, it takes forever to get through if someone's turning left, going either north or south on Watkins. So again, just want to reiterate, I look forward to this council at some point in the very near future. Hopefully that outlier will be taken care of next week for the rezoning of this property to no more than low density 4 or single family residential. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to speak tonight? Good evening, Dorothy.
Good evening. Yes, my name is Dorothy Hicks. I'm at 262 Charles Road, Pataskla. I've been there for over 40 years, nice, quiet. But of course, with the Bulletproof Ranch, things of course are really changing. This is not my first time coming, of course, to the meeting. But I'm really looking forward to the zoning to get it right. And I think that we should not try to, of course, work with the Bulletproof Range to try to get a compromise, try to get this worked out. Because the next time we back to that same thing again. So I'm looking forward to the zoning committee to get it right the first time. Because my understanding also is that it was for shooting inside only. If that was the permit, then that's what they should be doing. So anytime you change something in my home, I would have to come back to the zoning committee again. If I wanted to add an extension to my home, I had to come back to you again. So we need to get it right, and we need to get it right the first time. Because if you're doing it for Sugar Creek, because eventually what's going to happen as potassium develop with all this farmland, it's going to be something you're going to have to deal with in the first place. So we need to do it, and we need to get it right. That's what we need to do. And that's what I'm looking forward to. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wish to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Hi again, guys. Lee Guttentag, 280 Charles Road. I listened to everything that the Agricultural Committee said. I appreciate you guys discussing it. A couple of things that you guys said were actually interesting. Grew up in New Jersey in the 70s. Was a rural town that slowly had the same problems you guys had with discharge zones. They made it pretty simple. If a residential area came in, there was no discharge within 3 miles, everything was changed. Plain and simple. It was safe, there was no noise constraints, it was just done globally. New Jersey didn't have this problem, don't know why you guys do. Secondly, not exactly sure why anybody signs a zoning contract at all. I mean, isn't a secondary contract if you're signing stating that there's no excessive noise, which it does state, and you will only shoot inside, which I have things stating that he signed? Why is that not the second contract that they signed overriding the first? I mean, he did sign a contract stating this. Not sure why the discharge zone takes first precedent. I'm thinking if he sat down with the committee, what's even the point? Can I now go do whatever I want from a zoning standpoint? Sounds like the zoning here is kind of goofy. You guys made was it last meeting or the other one where growing licking came out? You guys were worried about why businesses aren't coming in. Well, right behind us on Mink, 22 acres just got sold to a medical company. They haven't announced yet what they're doing. Historically across the state, they do bring in nursing homes, they do bring in medical buildings, they bring in other things. I haven't been able to get a contact with them. I'm really hoping they want to bring in a nursing home because the Bullet Ranch is going to piss them off so badly. Kind of curious why you guys aren't aware of the zoning problems in these discharge zones are probably going to prohibit businesses from coming in. These are major concerns out here. Secondly, I know you guys asked for them to test the sound. First of all, the nuisance law is not on my property. It's at Mill Street. That was where the nuisance came in. Do you know how close that is to Bullet Ranch? They are shooting shotguns. Do you really think we need testing to know how high that is from Mill Street to there? It's really, really close. Excellent point about Sugar Mill, I don't know what that, I wasn't listening that much about their last name. Sugar Mill, I'm gonna call it, sorry guys if I got that wrong. But why are they allowed to have their place removed from the discharge zone if they're interrupting their lifestyle? But Mill Street, Adams, Broad, us, we're all getting disrupted by this place that promised they were not going to do this, but they won't remove them.
I say leave the Bullet Ranch indoor in the discharge zone, remove the outdoor entire thing from the discharge zone. That's only fair to the rest of us. Why should all of our property values, all of our quality of life, our animals, our health and everything get ruined because of them? They decided to use this instead of admitting to the zoning board what they were planning to use the property for. Maybe they would have told them they couldn't build there at all and use that planning. So they lied to get their way using a very, very bad ordinance. So in conclusion, I'm a little disappointed on how that meeting went. I don't think everybody's thinking this through. I'd like to also want to know is who and where does the nuisance laws actually take place? That was not addressed, and who addresses them in this city? Because the nuisance laws do state specifically about noise. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to introduction, discussion, and approval of consent agenda matters.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Powell. Discussion and roll, please.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda passes. On to reports. Just want to report real quickly. I'm going to let you touch on what happened this morning at the police station because that was awesome. But I want to put out some thanks to obviously Lanier and your crew at the Parks Department, the Street Department, Alan Haynes and your guys, Andy and PRA and Mr. Higgin for coming down and pitching in to help pull off another successful fireworks display. Was hot, but you know what? It beats the alternative. I kept telling people it's better than rain and mud. And we had a very successful night. I don't know what you guys made, but the other service groups have told me that, and there were 3 of them, PCPAA, Police Citizens Academy alumni, the Lions Club, and the Women's Auxiliary are all close to $1,000 in one afternoon and evening. So that's huge for our service groups. No incidents to report. I think fire department said one little girl had dropped a sparkler because it got too close to her hand. She didn't have any first or second or third degree burns. She just scared herself. So one incident in the whole park for the whole day. The 5K that was in the morning that we added, of course the police department helped us out with this, was a huge success. They had over 100 runners for the first year and like 20 walkers. So United Way ended up making a nice little sum too, which of course we all know United Way money comes back to our city. So huge. And of course next year it falls back on actually the 4th. It'll be Saturday the 4th. So we won't get any more static about having fireworks in June. So that's my report. Mr. Barstow, what do you got for me?
I don't have anything, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
David, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I do not, and neither did Mr. Zetz.
Okay, very good. Stepping in tonight for Mr. Zetz is David Mosier. We appreciate you being here, sir.
Happy to be here.
Mr. King, what do you got for us?
Thank you, Mayor. From a legislative standpoint, first of all, request that resolution 2019-050 be tabled this evening. That policy needs some additional work before it is put up for a vote of council. So request a motion is made and that be placed on the table for consideration at a later date. Couple items I just want to mention. I sent out an email to everybody about impact fees and some information we got about those. Please take a look at that information. If you have any questions, let me know. I anticipate that the development committee will be having a discussion on impact fees during our June 15th meeting. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I feel strongly this is something we need to move quickly on.
July 15th. July 15th meeting.
June 15th. Oh, July, geez, man.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No, you're absolutely, I was still lost there.
July.
July 15th. Our next council meeting, the
Gone
development
fast.
committee will meet before, it is going fast, to talk about impact fees, so please take a look. Again, I feel strongly this is something we need to move forward with and get put in place, as quickly as possible. Update on Main Street, Tommy, Tim, myself, the owner of the Ivory Barn, a resident from AEP, been out there on Friday. We were able to answer a lot of questions for the owner of the Ivory Barn, what's gonna happen, boring underground, what does that mean, that sort of stuff. Leaving there, I felt very good, and I do anticipate this week that AEP will get that final signed easement from the property owner. She was excited that the pole in front of her place would be removed. She thinks that'll help, the appearance of the front of her building. We also talked about a pole that's in the back that she asked about, which AEP is gonna see if they're able just to remove it, cause it's a dead end pole, so. Feel good, I will continue to keep up, council updated on that, hopefully this week with notification that, everything's been signed. Several meetings ago, there was a gentleman from the BIA who attended, to address council. And during that discussion, there was mention of potentially having a special council meeting, a workshop with members of the BIA just to talk about, residential development trends in the community. I've talked to Nate Strum about this as well, as we talked to him about it when he was here. He's reached out to the gentleman at the BIA. They're willing to do it. They would certainly want to have an agenda, and know ahead of time what will be discussed. Curious if this is something council would be interested in us working towards getting scheduled and, inviting the BIA folks in. So any feedback you can provide, I would certainly appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I listened to the BIA spiel at the Chamber of Commerce meeting a couple months ago. I'm not interested in listening to that again.
Mr. Walter?
On the BIA, would that be a workshop, or what do you feel the format would be? I mean, having him come up and to the podium,
Bless you.
come up
That's
to the
not a good
podium
way to do
is
it.
not gonna be.
I would
very
like to
good.
have a more informal discussion workshop type
And would it
sensation.
be,
It would have to be a public meeting still, as
Sure.
a council.
would it also include development personnel that can shed light on trends, how developments are getting approved in Central Ohio, what development means to communities?
Certainly
within-
could,
Okay,
yeah.
then I would definitely be in favor of
Certainly
that.
could, if that's the direction we're gonna go with that.
I mean, if we're gonna hear from what developers want, if he's gonna tell us that, I can say that we've had developer after developer already come in here and tell us what they want. I don't think we need, the lobbyists from the BIA coming in here and telling us what they want. We've already heard it.
Mrs. Carter?
And if it's going to be us giving them feedback on what they want, what we want, I think that would need us to have a unified message before we talk with someone else. Because we haven't even come up with, I don't believe we all are on the same page about what we would like or what we think fits in our particular wards.
Mr. Hicken?
Well, I agree with all that, and certainly we had a very interesting give and take the night that they sent an individual here to talk to us about it. I would like, instead of just, for me, this is just me, saying, no, I wanna know what I'm still not exactly clear on what the workshop would entail. And I'd wanna see it, cause if we're gonna be able to truly give some type of input, that might make it worthwhile. If it's gonna be this is what everybody wants now, and you guys better get on board, I'm a no. I mean, I'll meet with those people individually,
Sure.
because I think all of us don't close anybody out. But, to spend a dedicated public meeting for just people to, I think I know what most of the people that are in that field are desirous of. And I really would meet with any one individual. But before I would say an absolute yes to a workshop, I'd wanna see exactly what it was.
Sounds like we need some more info.
Well, I certainly will work with those folks then to put together an outline and share with council to see if it's something that, would be favorable to do.
Tommy, Suzanne, any input on that one?
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think everybody brought up a good point, but I don't feel like another lecture. I think if they've got some stuff that we can learn from, sure, but again, I'm not interested in that scolding again.
Yeah, I'm not into a lecture either, but you know, and BJ and I both, you know, attend Morpsey, and, you know, we do get insight on what trends are, and, you know, I think we should be aware, so that, but certainly don't want things shoved down my throat either. We know what we want. We live here, so, thanks, BJ.
Let me work together, put
Okay.
together essentially a program
Good.
and that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, yes, sir.
On the Main Street,
Yes.
I know in just past discussions, there's been a lot of hope that this would be completed by the street fair. I also know that this is gonna take some time, not only for AEP and our electrician. Was there any discussion about that coordination?
There wasn't, I'm sorry I didn't mention that.
Okay.
AEP said at this point it would be difficult to have it done before the street fair, but they would have it, you know, that they would be able to move on it shortly thereafter.
I guess, I'm guessing that they don't wanna get halfway done.
No,
That would be worse
the
than.
only thing we talked about is prior to the street fair, because of the grand opening for the Ivory Bar, which is October, and she's gonna wanna grade and everything, maybe putting in the conduit on the south side of her property prior to anything else, and they said they'd be able to come in and do that.
Okay, but we do see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, I hope so, Andy.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Feel good about it.
no, yes, we do.
Good, great.
No pun
Good answer. BJ, air conditioning on theater.
I don't have an update this evening, but I will get one.
But just tell me where we at in the process?
The design phase,
Okay.
so, but I'll get an update this week and get it out to council.
Scott's designing it, and you'll
Correct.
bring it back to us, or
Not
just
Scott
move forward?
specifically, his company is,
Okay,
yeah,
and then we'll just move forward with that design?
Got it. you got it, and I'll share that with council this week.
Okay.
Get those punch out.
And one of the reasons I ask is the obviously the theater group is the theater group's excited about, you know, possibly getting back in there,
Yes,
knowing now that we're going to have some restrooms to use, and also the Watkins high schoolers that would love to continue their play series. They were doing a summer series, and they were kind of holding off until so they weren't sweating off 30 pounds every summer, and so hopefully we'll get there soon.
Mayor, can I just mention one more thing?
Yes.
Again, legislative matters, there is a resolution 2019-052 this evening, to increase the previously approved contract with Mankind LLC for the modifications at the town hall, to increase it by $1,000 to refinish the wooden floors that we found underneath the carpet in the chief's old office. I do strongly encourage doing that so we can bring those wood floors back and meet the intent of what that building should be. That's all I have.
And also in leadership, we talked about 2019-4341. Do we have enough information on that to move forward? Are we still waiting on information? That's for the middle ground, Beechwood Trails area.
I will defer to Scott and Chris on discussions they may have had with the developer.
We're still working on that?
We are, we actually have a meeting with those folks tomorrow at 1 p.m.
Okay, so probably best still to hold on that, obviously.
Well, it would be the second
It's only
reading.
second reading.
Oh, okay, second reading. Okay, gotcha. Very good. Very good. Thanks, BJ.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor.
Nicholson, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back. Couple things, we received notice that, Rita, when they collect our income tax revenue, they charge a flat upfront 3% fee, and then in the first 6 months following, they calculate what the actual cost of collections were for all the communities. Our collections for 2018 were 2.36%, which is, we got a refund of a little over $36,000, which, you know, the state talks like they might like to take over income tax collections, but to get compliance, reporting and collections for 2.36%, that's pretty good price. So I'm pleased with that refund. And that was distributed back into the funds at the rates the costs were paid out. The 2018 CAFR document is done. It's on the city's website. It's published to the MSRB, which is the SEC's website, so we are in compliance there. We also received notice this past week that our 2019 budget document for this year's budget received their Distinguished Budget Award, so that's our third consecutive year to get that, so we're pleased about that. The final thing is I have given Council President a letter from Julian and Grew. They are asking, is this the annual post audit? Does council wish to have a post audit conference with the auditors or not? And so we just basically have to respond one way or the other, and so I guess I'd be looking for direction from council in terms of whether you would like a post audit conference with those auditors. That's all I have.
Okay. Anything for Jamie?
Yes, so I just needed the direction of council, just on these post-audit sessions, they're very informative. Someone comes from Julian Group and gives us information, we can ask questions. I've done a couple of these, so they're kind of interesting. If you're interested, we can do it. If you're not interested, then I'll let them know. So I guess I will ask for a formal vote, but anybody want to do this?
I'm not opposed to it.
Okay.
How many's interested?
I'll do it.
1, 2, 3.
My hand's not up, I want to
Okay.
talk.
All right.
Your hand is not, Mr.
That is correct, I apologize. The raising of my hand does not mean that I'm voting, it means that I'd like to speak when I'm recognized.
Okay. So right now, Mike Powell, Mr. Barstow, Mr. Walther, anybody else?
I wanna hear his question first.
Go ahead, Mr. Hicken.
So in the past, I too have participated in these, and I'm trying to remember if, I think one was in a more round robin setting, almost like we have here, right? And I think another one was more on an individual basis because there wasn't a huge desire.
And we can accommodate either of those.
And I'm trying to gauge I thought that the round robin, or if you wanna call it the larger council, almost special meeting with them, they got asked a couple of questions and they told us exactly how the process went, and I thought that was informative. But I felt like it wasn't like we all were loaded with questions. And so, I'll bow to whatever council wants, but yes, I'd like to talk to them. If they're here on a day and you go, your time slots from 10 to 10:30, great, I'll do it that way. My 10 cents in is, the other way didn't seem it seemed like it was more formal and it wasn't necessary. That's my 10 cents. But if that's how council chooses to do it, I'll come and I'll ask a question.
And it wouldn't even have to necessarily be a special meeting, because we're not talking about probably more than 10 minutes tops, 10, 15 minutes tops, I would imagine. Could easily be at the beginning of the council meeting, they could come here as a speaker.
No, that's, yeah.
As long as
that's
council's
what I'm
amenable
saying.
to
That's
that approach, you
okay.
can dialogue back and forth.
All right, then we'll invite him, we'll get him on the agenda.
I'm good with
We'll
that.
ask questions. Okay, very good, I'll get it taken care of. Thanks.
You'll set that up? You'll set it up for us?
Well, with Mr. Nicholson's assistance, yeah.
Okay, very good.
Jamie, get it set up.
Just wanna make sure.
You want me to,
So just sign and mark the, yes, we want one.
the sign here says, it's where BJ's supposed to sign. You want me to sign for the,
There's two, there's one for management, one for
Governance?
governance.
okay,
You
I'll
would be
do that one.
governance.
All right, very good. Carry on.
All right. Anything else for Jamie? Okay. Chris, what do you got for me tonight, sir?
Thank you, Mayor. I got a few highlights from my report. The first thing would be a new resolution in front of council tonight. It's to cover the application for the construction loan for the WRF upgrades. The actual loan cannot be awarded until the bidding process is completed, but we're trying to meet that tight timeline of getting this all in this year, take advantage of that 0% interest. So I'm trying to apply for the loan early to give the EPA plenty of time to do their review process, which can be kind of lengthy sometimes. I am in contact with the rep from the EPA to be handling the loan, and she assured me that if we stick with this timeline, give her this amount of time early to review the parts of the application she can. We're still on course for an October award date, which gives us about a month should something come up in the meantime to still get the loan this year with the 0% interest. Online with the WRF upgrade, the PTI submittal is supposed to go in probably next week for the EPA to review that as well, which is another lengthy process, but it's still moving along in step with the schedule that we had. I'd like to point out the billing teams. As everybody knows, we have a new billing clerk and a new environment, I will say, at the window. There's been an average of about 75 additional customers every month that come to the window than previously. So I think they're doing a really good job, and the customer service is being noticed. There's a lot of compliments at the window as well about the new attitude at the window. So pretty proud about that. Class 1 water supply license, we have 3 newer employees, Trent Howe, Assistant Superintendent, and his employees, John Burr and Connor Johnson. All 3 of them have volunteered to sign up for the Class 1 water course this fall so that they can go through the process to get their water treatment license, which is a great thing. If they go through and finish all the steps, everybody in the department that's in the field will have some type of a license, whether or not their job requires it, which is another new attitude towards professional growth in the department, which I was pretty proud of. The last thing I wanted to say was last July 18th, the district gave our department a tour of their new plant. It's a really neat plant, their RO plant down there. They were real generous for us. It took about an hour and a half, answered all our questions, which we had plenty of them, and it was just a neat thing to go down there and see the plant. CJ had that up, and it was a nice time, so just wanted to throw that out. Outside of that, I don't really have anything. Be happy to answer any questions.
So at the window, personality and attitude makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Makes a huge difference.
Yeah, congratulations.
Nothing but positive remarks for the new approach.
Congratulations, and also kudos to the water department. I had a lady contact me, and she was concerned she had a water leak, and I said, call the folks at 8:01, and you were there at 9:01, so thank you very much. She
Absolutely.
reached out to me and said, I can't believe somebody would react that fast, and I said, we do. So,
So as quick as we can.
yep, very
Sorry
good.
we were late.
Yeah, we'll do that better next time. It'll be 8:02. So, very good, Chris. Thanks. Alan? Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have something for Chris? I'm sorry.
I do. I've got 2 things. One, I just wanted to tell council, and I think Tim will echo this. Chris, I can't tell you how impressed I've been with the work you've done so far with the district and the different discussions we've had, working with them, working through the agreements. I think your work's been excellent.
Thank you. I
So,
appreciate it.
I think I told you that once before, but I want to make sure we said that in public forum. Second one was on the biosolids program. You mentioned in here the large concrete barricades. Are those our barricades, or are those something that's being supplied by AgriSludge?
Those are ours. We purchased them, and it prevents us from using the straw bales that we're falling apart into the product. So those are permanently ours moving forward.
And lastly, second part to that question, are we still moving forward with the idea that we're gonna be taking that back over at some time in the near future?
We are moving forward with that idea. The systems team, the 3 gentlemen I just mentioned earlier, they're taking on a lot right now, but they are excited. They're excited to be in the tractor. They're really interested to do this process, so they're gonna learn this year, possibly into the spring, and my goal is by next fall to be 100% back with us again.
Great, thank you.
Everybody wants a tractor.
Everybody wants a tractor.
Yes, Mr. Barstow.
Chris, how's the product?
Product is great. Product is better than it's been in quite some time. Stacking tall.
Mr. King?
I just wanted to piggyback on what Chris said about the front window. It has been a very refreshing change. Not only that, just the attitude down in that office with having somebody who more outgoing and energetic has been really nice to see. So our customers deserve it, and she certainly is delivering.
Very good. Yes, sir, Mr. Lee.
For Chris or BJ, I guess I could ask this from your report, how's the renovation of just your spot coming at Town Hall, and what's your time frame to get moved in there?
The renovation's coming along really well. Today we met with representative from Keytel to figure out where the data port and all the IT stuff that we're gonna need down there. But the floors are coming along well, the painting's well underway, and I believe we're shooting for a date of August 1st.
We're shooting
somewhere
for an
in
August
early
1st date
August.
because that's when the chamber would want to move into. Contractor knows that, doesn't feel there's going to be an issue meeting that. Carpet installation started today, and some of the offices said it's getting carpet. Wood floors have been ground down, have not been sanded yet. As Chris said, painting is well underway. Locksmith has been there to look at everything we need to do, met with detail, so it is moving along great, to be honest with you.
Awesome.
So both entities in possibly by the street fair, chamber and utilities, awesome.
Yeah, and as Suzanne just mentioned, I do think it would be nice once we get that thing, you know, it's been a police station for so long, so a lot of people didn't get to see that building. Some did, a lot didn't. But, it would be nice to have it open at some point to show people, especially the work we're doing to restore some of the flooring and that stuff. It's just gonna be, I know Chris, we've talked about it, I know he's excited about the floors as well.
The floors are amazing. I can't wait to see them finished. They're
Well,
gonna be really nice.
You saw how many residents took advantage of an open house at our new police station. I bet you there's people who would love to see that building, and I bet you we could get the theater group involved too, to show all 3 levels. Well, not the basement yet, obviously.
Right, not the
but-
basement yet, but it is nice also, you know, down there, a lot of people could walk to the open house, and
Yep.
that's what
Street fair would be a good time.
Street fair would be a good time, but I'm also hoping that, you know, as Chris said, there's 75 more people coming to the window than we've had. I'm hoping a lot of those people are gonna be within walking distance of the new building, and it becomes more of a neighborhood type thing where they can walk and pay their bill.
Great.
And that, of course, was our goal when we decided to put it there, is utility services, impact people in the village, and that was part of that. It's probably some people are farther away, but
Probably.
the idea that, people can go into that building and see our utility people, no matter where they're from.
And at any time, if any of you are interested in getting in there just to see how it's coming along, please let myself or Chris know and get you in.
All right, anything else for Chris? Thank you, sir. Alan?
Thank you, Mayor. We had a pre-construction meeting for the Oak Meadow Drive project here about a week and a half ago. That went really well. The contractor's ready to get started as soon as we get the structures fabricated for the drainage itself. So we're working through submittals on that. Hopefully they'll get out there yet in July. I don't have a specific date yet because again, we're waiting on those structures to be fabricated. Along with that project, I anticipate bringing a resolution to council at the next meeting for the sidewalks. And then working with Mr. Nicholson on the supplemental for those as well. Anticipate probably the next council meeting or two have that on the agenda. And then about halfway through the year, so we worked with Hull to get an update on the engineering retainer to see what projects we've got on there. I did not get that ready in time for council, but I will send that out to council tomorrow. But being halfway through the year, we've only used about a quarter of that budget, so we're tracking really well on our engineering retainer. Aside from that, happy to answer any questions.
Yes.
Alan, a quick question on the Mink Street, and I'm looking to make sure I get this right. Mink Street 2, I think.
Yes.
You say complete in July.
Yes.
Is there any more detail? Is there any more finite detail to that rather than July?
ODOT is telling me mid-July to the end of July. However, the contractor is hoping to be done sooner than that. So right now I'm going with mid-July. They're definitely in the final stages and they're hoping to get that wrapped up and get out.
And then a follow-up on that, would you be able to speak with ODOT or with the contractor just to make sure that they finish cleaning up over at the Leeds parking lot that they had used? There's still a few things left to do. I know it's been raining all spring. So if before they leave in mid-July or earlier, if we can make sure that they get in a piece of equipment over there and clean that up and replace the parking, just put it back to the way it was. It actually improved as they put gravel down. That would be great.
Okay. I will do.
I had a second question, if that's okay.
Sure.
Taylor Road, I noticed they're also doing a lot of seeding and a lot of straw matting.
Yes.
Those areas, are those associations, do the associations take care of those areas that are, I know you had issues with irrigation lines and so forth, but the areas that I'm seeing is between the sidewalk and the street, and then the path and the street and the ditch sections. In the past, it seemed like the associations might have been mowing those.
That is correct.
Or the landowners. I don't know where their land property or their property lines end. Who will take care of that from here forward? And there's a reason for my question is, do you think we should get them out there and get them to look at it and say, yeah, we can take care of that, or there's some more work to do, one of the two?
So the HOA specifically for the subdivisions that's adjacent to, they are planning to take care of that. We've had those discussions with them, and there's been no problems noted.
Okay.
For the residents themselves, we anticipate that's gonna remain the way it was, and they will be maintaining that as well. We will mow whatever we need to.
So the independent landscape companies will mow to the path, and then on the other side of the path to the road. They'll take care of everything like they did before.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Anything else for Alan? Alan, I heard you mention tonight, and I know I've had tunnel vision because I've been trying to get some drainage issues for a long time done at Halloon and Summit and stuff, but I heard you mention Blanche. I don't remember Blanche Edition, and I may be totally wrong here. Blanche Edition has a drainage issue?
Yeah, there was a study done back in 2004, and there was about a 5-phase project identified back then. I want to say about 2 of those phases were completed sometime in the 2000s, but there came to be an issue with finishing that project because of a landowner and some development potential at the outlet. So 2 to 4 of those phases were not completed. So being that it wasn't completed, there are still some drainage issues. It's mostly backyards, stagnant water, things not running the way they should. But we have had that identified as a project, at least since I've been here, and it's number 3 on the major projects list.
That's what I was gonna ask you, where that was at. That's number 3.
Correct. Although we've had some discussion about that in Halloon Lane are number 2 and 3. Of course, Taylor Road at Berry is number 1. We're working through that now. Trying to get money in the CIP to work on both of those because they're both between $500,000 to $1 million projects if you look at the whole thing, but to reduce burden on the budget, trying to break those up into different phases and put them in over the next 3 to 5 years probably.
So we're gonna miss that opportunity with Mr. Carr to alleviate some drainage issues.
Unfortunately, we would need easements to do anything for Halloon Lane because it's all on private property, and I don't think we'll be able to get that done to meet his schedule.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anything else for Alan? Okay. Mr. Fulton.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no applications scheduled for the July Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, so there will be no meeting this month. Also, I wanted to mention the Planning and Zoning Department truck. I think it's been driven arguably for the last time. It's a 2003, Ford F-150. Kelly Blue Book value between $2,253,000 and $2,858. Cost of repairs, just the ones we identified. We had 2 separate mechanics take a look. Both identified cost of repairs exceeding the cost of the vehicle. So we're looking at about $5,000 for repairs on the vehicle. Those are just what's been identified at this point. We have, I'd say, approximately 100,000 miles on it. So we looked through the state of Ohio competitive purchasing program, found a state bid truck. It's a Dodge Ram 1500 that comes in approximately $24,000. So we hope to have the legislation for that at council next month because right now the zoning inspector is driving his personal vehicle to do inspections. Aside from that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And we're reimbursing, he's keeping track of his mileage and we're reimbursing him?
That's correct.
Okay. Will the new Dodge Ram require any equipment other than maybe a flashing yellow light or something, or?
We can use the flashing yellow light from the previous truck,
Okay.
because that's what he's using on his right now, and perhaps some magnet decals for the doors just so it's identifiable. Other than that, we should have everything we need.
Don't need any other equipment,
Mhm.
okay. Anything for, yes, sir?
Just a zoning matter, we, as you guys know, we have a vacancy on the Board of Zoning Appeals currently advertised, and we have interviews scheduled for July 15th at 7 p.m.
Mr. Lee, what do you got?
Yeah, so, a comment, a question, maybe the question for the entire council. I think Mrs. Carter brought up a fabulous point that I think we're in a spot right now where, when it comes to all these developments, we kind of need to figure out what we want, or what we individually want. That doesn't mean we have to agree on it, but at least we know where each other stands, and I think that would help you in your department as we move forward. I don't know how that looks. I don't know if it's a general discussion, but I think that point is spot on. To Mr. Barrett's point and his comment tonight, the email that was sent out about the different multifamily parcels throughout the city, correct me if I'm wrong, it looked like maybe 8 left, 6 to 8. throughout the city.
Or, yeah,
I personally, just my 2 cents, would like, to look at those as a whole, to see if they make sense for the city. Maybe some of them do, maybe some of them don't, but to his point, instead of just looking at one, let's look at all of them and see where we all stand on that and if they make sense for the city. For example, the one on Blacks Road, it's probably a 200-acre parcel, maybe 100-acre, somewhere in there.
that's the one that's striped.
It's zoned 3 different ways.
Yeah,
It just doesn't make any sense at all. And right down through the middle of it's multifamily, and then it's manufacturing on one, and then R20 on the other. This
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. So I just think that we need to have that discussion, to your point, as well. Where are we with that? And do we want to take a look at that instead of just that parcel, which I agree needs looked at. But let's look at all of them. So just kind of throw that out there and see if anybody has any comments on it.
Go ahead, Mr. Barstow.
No, I certainly agree with Mrs. Carter's point about where, we haven't decided completely. I think the comprehensive plan will help inform that decision. We may not agree on everything in the comprehensive plan, but I think it's gonna help inform our decision and let developers and residents, know, generally what we want. In terms of the multifamily, situation and some of the anomalies, I'll call them the zoning map, Mr. Lee brings up a great point as well. The problem with that is, as I found out, and Mr. Powell has been advised, we are gonna be, we don't think we can do it as a group because individual council members are gonna have to recuse themselves, based on advice from city attorney. So we could do it, look at them, we have to do it individually. That's when we decided we wanted to do it. I think that's the development committee. I think that's where that starts, to look at that. So, but I think those are good points from both members of council. And so my last question is, where are we on the comprehensive plan? When do you think we're gonna get a final version of that?
the draft was sent out last week to the steering committee, and these were updates based upon the meeting that they had in April. So it's presented to them to say, here's all the changes that were made, please review, make sure that, we didn't miss anything, everything makes sense. The next step in my goal is to allow them some time to review it, maybe a week or two, and then once they're comfortable, my goal is to move forward and take it to the development committee and not have another steering committee meeting. However, I did say that if we're still not comfortable, I don't want people not on board, that if we need to meet again, I'm happy to do it. But the thought is to move forward to development committee.
Okay, because I think that's important to Mrs. Carter's point and Mr. Lee's point as well, that we know what we're doing going forward. Thanks.
Mrs. Carter?
I'm just tossing it out there, when it comes to the comp plan and keeping everything in order, I don't want us to go making changes or doing things, having much discussion about it before the comp plan is done, which is, I was going to ask the same question, how close are we? The second is, initially I would say yes, bring it to development committee, but I'm almost thinking that considering the amount of applications we've had, the discussions, the various things that have gone on, instead of just bringing that to the development committee, possibly having a special council meeting to discuss simply that. And to talk about the different areas of town with all the various multifamily, zoning areas, the anomalies. I don't know what you guys think, but I think I would hate to have just the development committee meet on it and then come to council. I'm looking for the most efficient way, but this one definitely garners full council attention, I think.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's spot on too. I mean, because we owe it to ourselves. I think we owe it to the residents. We owe it to our zoning department. And we also owe it to the potential developers. I mean, whether we like their development or not, they're putting money in it. And they should know up front, if that's what we're looking for. And to Mr. Barstow's point, well, to back up, I agree with Mrs. Carter. I think a workshop would be great, so we can hash this out. And at least we know, again, even if we don't agree, at least we all know where each other stands.
Kathy, you have an interjection?
Just something for Mr. Mosier. I believe the ad hoc has to report back to council. I think that's maybe in our charter.
Okay.
I defer to you. I haven't looked at that.
I believe so.
You're saying it with some authority and confidence right now, so I believe I would defer to you. I can look at the charter if you want me to tonight, though. Absolutely. I'm confident.
I believe that.
Thank you, Law Director Hoskins.
What did I miss there? To finish that, I just want to respond to Mr. Barstow. I just want to clarify. So, agreed that we should wait on the comprehensive plan, but he brings up a valid point of having to look at an individual and people having to recuse. So my question for you, Mr. Fulton, would be, if I'm gonna use myself hypothetically, wanted to see one of the 8 rezoned away from multifamily. Does that mean I have to come in and request that? I would like that to be something that we discuss and talk about, or do I have to, would one of us have to individually come in and ask for a zoning change? Or is that something that we would do amongst ourselves up here? Somewhat like the last one, is that how
I
it works?
believe that would be the process that we'd have to go through, an ordinance to move it forward to planning commission, and then it would come back to the council to rezone it. That's what we did last time, so that's my
So we
understanding.
couldn't have a discussion and decide to do it together, it'd have to be one of us?
That's what you're saying.
No, I think it would.
Is that what you're saying?
It would be all of council that would have an ordinance to move it forward to.
But one of us would have to put it in, no?
No.
Okay.
It could be city council.
It could be council, or it could be planning and zoning, or it could be.
Understood.
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
because the first step would just be to refer the question to the Planning and Zoning Commission, to make a recommendation back to council to do, and then council either votes to uphold that recommendation or deny it.
Fair enough. I agree. I'd like to see a special meeting on it, if possible, to hash it out.
Yeah, not really a workshop, but a special meeting, as you said. Mr. Hicken?
I'm fully in favor of the special meeting because I want to remind the people that what you're talking about there is possibly initiating rezoning somebody who owns a piece of property out from underneath them. And that was one of the reasons that I voted no on the last one. I hated it. I didn't like the development. I agreed with everything that was said at the podium earlier. But I think any time we were considering doing that, we better be ready for multiple lawsuits. And I would almost rather see us work with the people that already have it and see if they would like to initiate that. So, and that can all be part of that discussion, so.
Great, good. Any other discussion? All right, Lanier, can you top that one?
Probably. Thank you, Mayor. Tonight on Resolution 050, we have a community service project policy up for the first reading. Currently with that policy that was sent out, Exhibit A, per the law director, there are some tweaks that need to be made prior to the finalization of that, so I'll be working on that over the next few weeks to make sure that those revisions are completed and sent back over to Mr. Zetz, and also review with Mr. King as well before we bring that back as a final document. Over the last 2 weeks, of course, we've been hit with a lot of stagnant heat. We've had multiple calls regarding our 3 ponds. We've had some algae bloom that have arisen, and also some dead fish, which is all normal, part of a summer kill. I did want to make you guys aware that tomorrow at our Parks Board meeting, I will be bringing this issue up in hopes to get a recommendation to council to be able to come up with a solution to add aeration to those ponds to minimize algae bloom and also to minimize the amount of dead fish we may have or lose to protect our investments that we had stocking the ponds this year. So I'll be hopefully bringing something back at our next meeting per recommendation from Parks Board tomorrow. Speaking of ponds, our event that we had on the 22nd, our Outdoor Family Adventure Day, it was a success. I gave out over 230 poles, which were all part of the Rod and Reels grant through ODNR. With the numbers, we had a little over 400 people that were at the park, and you would not believe the amount of people who were interested in fishing. They were happy to have fishing poles. We did a lot of education. Justin Solly and I did some basically how to teach and how to fish educational sessions for 4 or 5 hours straight. So it was a nice hot day, but it was a success, so I want to bring that up to you. The United Way 5K we had this past weekend was also a success, with it being our first 5K in the community. You would be surprised the amount of runners and walkers that we have in the community that came out, and I believe next year we can probably top that by maybe another 100 runners and walkers. Like, we get more of our walkers out there just walking a mile. You know, that's a goal, is our health and wellness initiative, and I think that tied in perfectly with that. So I'm hoping next year we can top that and maybe add a few extra, I guess, activities and events into the mix to encourage our community residents to become healthy as possible. On Friday, I went to a Managing the Woodlands course, which was offered by Ohio Department of Natural Resources and also the Department of Forestry. I went to this course just to get a feel for how to properly manage our woodlands and our parks. A lot of insight on reducing invasive species, a lot of dead tree, how to market that. So it was a good insight for me to learn, I guess, to develop a plan how to get our woods back into the proper shape that they should be, especially Foundation Park with a lot of the invasive species that we have, and also Liberty Park with the improvements that we plan to do. Speaking of Liberty Park, we have received the bid documents and the specifications from Hall. There are a few tweaks that need to be changed in there, but we're still on board and on target for a August 1st bid date, pending review from ODNR after I send the documents out from the finalized copies. We're hoping to get that out within the next 2 weeks. And that's all I got for tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions.
It was nice to see you coordinate with the local bait company that's new in town. That was nice for your fishing tournament. That was cool. I was down there and those kids were really scrambling for those poles. That was nice. And of course, thanks again for the fireworks. And just a quick disclaimer, Lanier and I did take a half hour off this weekend. We got a chance to walk out in our own Foundation Park and throw a Frisbee.
Wow.
I want to tell you, Mayor, I think Lanier's a lot better at Frisbee than you are. I will absolutely tell you that.
I'm gonna say no, Andy. He had a couple moves where he would catch it under his leg.
He must have missed that.
It's like he was on the beach.
Thank you, Lanier.
Because you were crying.
Thanks a lot, Andy.
Right, you got it.
Thank you, Andy, though. Thank you.
You're dismissed.
Don't swear jar.
Any questions? Yes, Mrs. Carter.
Just a couple things. The 5K was very cool. I didn't get to attend, but I did the entire Licking Heights cross-country, varsity cross-country boys team came out, and my son placed third, and he was quite thrilled about that.
And Licking Heights actually, since one of the runners was in high school still, he was the first place runner. He wasn't able to accept a $50 award, so that award went directly to the Licking Heights cross-country budget. That's what they're donating it to. So that was very
They
good.
desperately need it, so that's awesome.
We
really
need to
like
do
that,
walk
and they
ins
were,
and hikes during, I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Invite both cross-country teams.
You gotta bring them together.
Just, it's great training.
Yeah, it is.
yeah, they, he was very excited about that, and so they definitely already talked about being there next year, so, and I apologize, we were supposed to get together before, the meeting, and talk about the Taylor Road Trail, and kind of a grand opening, if you will.
Yeah.
So, Lanier and I are brainstorming some things. I'm a little overexcited about it, so you'll hear about it, I'm sure. So if we can get together and do that sometime, that'd be awesome.
Mr. Hicken, did you have anything, sir? No. Okay, anything for, yes, sir.
Lanier, a couple different things. On the foundation, the septic tank, and I know we talked a little bit about this. I know there was, the alarm went off for it being full. Is there any way to, and I don't know how the alarm works necessarily, can it give you some advance notice when it's getting close? I mean, obviously it was a totally unfortunate time for it to be full. So anyhow, I just wanted to bring that up, something to think about. It's a good system. The only problem is it just tells you when it's full, and it gives you no advance notice.
It didn't give me a notice, but this is the second time it has gone off.
Okay.
And looking at it initially, there's approximately 3 feet of approximately 3 feet until it's all the way to the riser. And then once it hits the riser, still has another foot. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, anyhow, obviously, that happening on Saturday was not opportune. And then the second part of that question is the grading around there. You know, we worked the concession stand there and people were having some trouble getting through that area. Is there any way, I know you've gotten a bid to come in and have somebody professionally grade that off. I mean, it's a 25 by 30 foot area that, you know, I'm gonna ask, is there any way we can get, you know, some equipment down there of our own that we have now that can maybe back drag that and smooth it off and seed it and get that done? I'm just wondering if there's any possible way to do that.
I would say it's a good project for a Park Friday when Public Service Department guys are helping out.
That's what I look for.
Is that a motion?
That's it, well, I'm just, you guys can handle it, I don't wanna,
We'll talk, but, you know, on Fridays, we do have some public service guys dedicated to working in parks, and
great, that'd be great.
it seems like they can knock it out pretty fast.
It was the wrong side of the concession stand to be, you know, right against everything that was going on in the park. Second question, Lanier, I don't know if you and BJ, do you guys wanna talk at all about the meeting you guys had for the turnover of the pool that's coming later this summer? Yeah. Supervision wise, I think it'd be worthwhile for council to know what's going on.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can tie it in a little bit. We had a meeting a couple weeks, last week. We came to the consensus starting August 15th. There would no longer be an active manager on site at the pool. There will be 2 part-time managers. So after this week, I'm going to dedicate less than 10 hours at the pool learning from Jeff to ensure that I know the process moving forward. So August 15th until the closing, I'm going to have dedicated time out of my 40-hour work week to make sure that I am learning the system. That way, as we transition through the winter and also going into January, I know the ropes and moving forward.
Great, and again, you know, obviously, Ann and I will offer our help. And Jeff's down there, he's fantastic, the only problem is he's gone August 15th.
Yep.
So, I mean, he's gone like northern Ohio, so he's not gonna be able to help.
Yep.
So, thanks.
Suzanne?
I'm late on this since I was out of town last council meeting, so I didn't get to share how impressive Lanier was for the Active Fit Triathlon. So and it was a rainy day, and we still had kids show up in the rain. It was fantastic. It was proof that kids can leave their home when there's rain. It was in dangerous rain. We had a lot of kids show up, so they're fun. So you were stellar, like down there commanding everything. Like it was impressive. So we had a lot of people notice that the city, like the park looked great. You know, Chief and his wife were helping up at the pool, hand out snacks, and the mayor was there. It was awesome. So thank you. It was fun. The kids they love it, and so I just appreciate it looked great, and you were awesome, and you're doing great. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
With us taking over the pool next year, are we gonna talk about staffing?
That'll be part of the budget process and everything, coming up with the positions, the positions we need, the budget we need for it, and all of that will be part of the budget process.
Tommy?
Lanier, you know how I feel about this. We really appreciate all you're doing. I know the hours you're putting in, but I keep hearing you say, I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm dedicating time here. It sounds like you need help. So I know we've had other, you know, directors come and say they need help. So if you need help, get with BJ and bring some.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I even mentioned this to you. We wanna make sure that you have some help because you're giving 10,000%, but if you start trying to give 10,000% to everything, it's gonna look like you're doing well, I don't wanna get in the swear jar tonight, but you know what I mean.
Yep.
You're gonna get burned out.
Yeah. Mrs. Carter?
As we move into that discussion, and it's just a thought, and you guys can start to mull over this, but potentially, instead of Lanier being a manager, he should be a director.
Fully support that.
But, so you can't do that, you have to change the charter to do that, that's the only problem with that. The charter does require BJ to be the director. And I think if you guys review that, you can't.
I haven't looked at that section for a long time.
Trust me, it does.
And we do it.
We do.
that's coming up. It's a few years away. It'll be coming up.
Anxious, but yeah, okay. Good discussion.
Yep. Anything else for Lanier? Thank you, sir. Chief Bruce Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. As you mentioned earlier, the fireworks went off without a hitch. I'd like to thank Alan and Jason and his guys. They're blocking off the streets for us. It's tremendous. It gets better and easier every year. And Lanier, and I apologize, I don't know your helper's name, but he's really invaluable, and we all enjoyed working with him. He did a really great job.
He called me a lot on Saturday, so I was happy. Just to let you know, that was all volunteer time. So he had already worked his allotted 29 hours for the week, 26 hours for the week, or whatever it was, and he decided to come out on his own because he said he doesn't have a life outside of work, and he volunteered his time to be there to help out after I had left at 5:30. So he was there all night helping out. So
Now don't feel too bad for him. He had his girlfriend with him, driving around the gator, picking up trash. But you know what?
Don't tell him.
That guy was there till 11 o'clock, and we all went home picking up trash. And I thanked him profusely, not knowing at the time that he had done this for volunteers. So kudos to him.
He did a bang-up job.
Yeah.
He really did.
Yeah.
And then we actually have our speed trailer back out for the summer. Our first plan is to put it up on Mink when the construction is done up there to remind people it's not a speedway. And we had a visit this morning from Congressman Troy Balderson. He came over to tour the building, and it was a really nice hour. He was really engaged and asked a lot of questions, and it was just a really good time. And that is all I have for today. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just a quick note, Congressman Balderson has been notifying me on a regular basis and has met twice with me now. Is really interested in Licking County and Pataskala, and I mean, he really soaks up the information and tells us what's going on in his world. And it was a great hour and a half, 2 hours this morning, and he has told me that he's going to continue to come to Pataskala and keep us informed and meeting with us. So great, down to earth guy, jeans and a t-shirt type of guy. So fantastic. Yes.
Chief, I just wanted to ask, I read an article in the Standard, and I just hope that you would clarify this in open session. You had been quoted as saying that there was our officers make $30,000. Would you mind, because this is public information, so would you mind just letting us, first of all, is that true or untrue?
It is untrue. That was an error.
Okay.
It's closer to about 41,000.
Okay.
Base, yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else for Chief? Yes.
It's okay.
You sure?
Positive.
And I just wanted to backtrack real quick because the group that helped us with the fireworks too, we've gotten on board in the last couple of years the CERTS group, which is the Citizens Emergency Response Team, right?
Yep.
And they agreed to help us, and we're there at the crack of dawn for the 5K, and didn't go home until the last car was out of the lot, which again was only about a half hour to clear out both sides of the park, which was fantastic. So kudos to CERTS. Obviously, I'll be sending them. I send them a little donation every year, and of course Matt Dixon from the golf course gives us some golf carts. But we couldn't do it without them. And again, kudos to Alan. I keep thinking of this stuff. Jason and I drove around in the truck on Friday, checking out to see if there was any muddy areas, so we would avoid them. Everything was dry and perfect, and he came up with that idea to use another parking lot and had your guy mow it so that it was easy and stripe it so that it was easy. We actually put more cars in the park this year than we ever have. So it was huge. Thank you.
And still got the mountain record time.
Yes, half hour is amazing. So
Nice.
thanks to everybody for a successful Independence Day celebration. Anything else for Chief? Okay, committee chair reports. Yes, ma'am.
We did have a street committee meeting this evening. A few things that we went over that Alan didn't get to in his report. We are beginning the discussion of the 2020 ramp, looking at the streets and various things, so that discussion is coming. The main issue that we talked about this evening, in addition to going over the things that have been on the regular agenda, is the CIP for next year and the discussion of putting the Summit and Broad intersection improvement in the CIP for next year. The thought is that next year we begin the engineering and right-of-way acquisition, so we can start looking at those things and then be in line for our OPWC, got it in the right order, grant that apparently we're primed to get in a few years. So with the safety capacity study and everything that's coming, there's a relative certainty that that intersection is gonna come up high on that list. So the idea would be to get things primed, so when we are ready, we can move right forward with it. It'll probably be, when looking line items, right around the same cost as the Mink and Broad intersection, which was about $1.5 million. But we want to, that intersection is almost completely impassable at rush hour. There's no way for buses to turn left without running the light. So then that sparks the larger discussion of the entire corridor of Broad Street. And what are we doing? Do we have a plan? I mean, what are we going to do instead of just, continuing to kind of turn away and deal reactively instead of proactively? So ultimately, we would like to get Broad as a 5-lane road. Mink and Broad is already designed to facilitate that. If we were to widen the roadway, that intersection was built with that capacity in mind. The same would be done with the Summit and Broad intersection, with the idea that when we move that way, it would just be a matter of restriping and not, we wouldn't have to get any additional right-of-way or anything like that. And I've said this for years. I think within the first month I was on council 6 years ago, the first thing that I talked about was the Summit and Broad intersection. And now we've come, at that time, I had no idea that we were gonna have the Mink Road, interchange it at 161. You were gonna have Facebook, Google, so if you look at it now, the artery roadways are 310 and Mink Road, and the last one is Summit. I mean, it doesn't go to 161, but it goes clear down to Morse. And it is certainly something that people use to cut through the city from one side to the other. And that road is simply not designed to hold the capacity that it has already. I think Alan pointed out to me that maybe the chip and seal that was done hasn't lasted as long because of the construction traffic that's on the road. So we have got to start looking at a bigger plan for how we are going to expand our roadways across the city. And that's something that we've talked about and are going to continue to communicate on and talk to council about for feedback through the street committee. But it is time that we really look at a citywide plan to determine how we're gonna start moving towards facilitating all the capacity that we have and maintaining a quality of life for our residents who are already here. Not just giving people passable roadways who want to travel through here, but there's folks that have to live in these residential areas. And it's becoming harder and harder to get out of your own driveway on some of those roads. So that was probably one of the bigger discussions we had, and so that will be, that the street committee did make the recommendation to come to council with that, to place it on the CIP for the upcoming year. So I don't know if the appropriate time for that motion is when we have budget discussions, or now, whatever it may be, but that's where that's where we're at tonight.
Andy?
Just a quick question. I noticed on your agenda you had additional public service personnel. I know in the past we've asked for staffing projections and requests. I don't ever remember seeing any of those. I assume that we're gonna see something in that.
Yep, we haven't seen them because we haven't brought them to you yet, but
Okay.
they are in the works.
Very good.
Alan is, following much of the model that we, put Scott through and Jamie to come to us with that information. And he made a really good point tonight that, we have, a number of people out there working, but there's really no upward mobility in that department. So, we have somebody in charge and then a lot of people underneath them. But, so the idea would be to have a couple of crew managers, create a couple crew manager positions, and then, folks under them. So, one, that better manages our projects and we can disperse things a little better. It takes some of the weight off Alan, and it gives the department some place to go. So, it increases, what I would think would be, productivity really for the folks in the department. So, but yes, you will be seeing that when it's all prepared.
Anything else, ma'am? Anything else for Mel? Okay, thank you, ma'am. Any other committee chair? Yes, sir.
Yep, Ag Committee had a meeting this evening. Basically on the agenda was discharge zone discussions. We had two specific items to discuss. First was in a property adjacent to Sugar Mill. About 12 to 14 months ago, there was report of damage that had occurred over there from multiple bullet holes in cars, in houses, and so forth. The discussion was had whether now that the property has developed adjacent, the Sugar Mill area has developed in such a manner that this property would start the process to remove it from the discharge zone. Motion was made and was unanimously voted on, and so a motion for tonight will be brought forward to start the process to remove that property from the discharge zone. The second item was the issue regarding the Bullet Ranch and the issues that have been brought to council, have been brought to us publicly for nuisance complaints. We had a long discussion regarding the ordinance that's in place now, the criminal ordinance, the 505 section, and we discussed through zoning requirements to discharge zone ordinance requirements. In a nutshell, the ordinance, as I think Todd said, was poorly written at best, and it limits shooting within the discharge zone from dusk to dawn, so no nighttime shooting, unless there's a rodent or self-protection. The second part of it was could not be at an unreasonable time or for an unreasonable duration, which is very subjective. So in talking with Scott, Scott made it very clear that this is not necessarily a zoning issue. And Chief Brooks was fortunate to come in at the end of our meeting and add some information. We've asked that the city attorney look into, if there's any outside requirements, such as through the ORC or through other permitting avenues that would require for outside shooting. And then lastly, Mr. Lee asked that we study the decibel levels that are occurring in the different areas of Mill Street and or I believe it's Charles Street, Charles Street. Yeah, exactly. And that we understand what those decibel levels are during any shooting that's occurring at the Bullet Ranch. So that's where that stands right now. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Have we, because we've had nuisance complaints, and have we had any discussions with the owners of the Bullet Ranch about the complaints or about the outside shooting?
It has come up. The current nuisance regulations in the zoning code, well, I can say for noise, for example, it can't exceed 60 decibels, but then there's no penalty section, so it's unenforceable. So glare, odor, they didn't include that, so there's no way to enforce it. We can say, well, you're over 60, but there's no consequence. So from a zoning perspective, until we get clarification on applicability of the discharge zone, and then we update the nuisance section, there's not a whole lot from a zoning perspective that we can do.
Follow-up question.
Yes, ma'am.
With their application and when they built, it was indeed that they would only shoot indoors? Was that the?
It never, to my recollection, limited it specifically to indoor. It
You
said
have
they
to
were
not
gonna
read
be-
it, and you can come back.
I would like for staff to follow up on that if you could, so we could take a look at it, because if that's the case, then I think that that's a discussion to be had with the owners as well, if that was indeed outlined.
And I will follow up into it, but I guess the issue that it comes down to, that we need guidance, does the discharge regulations, does it, for lack of a better word, trump zoning? That there's nothing in those regulations that ties it to anything zoning related, commercial or otherwise. So that's why the issue comes down to, do they need a permit or not? And whichever way I'm directed to go, I'm happy to do. I don't have a clear path forward.
Mr. Hicken?
Not being allowed to participate, but being present for that discussion, that was very interesting. As Mr. Barstow pointed out during that conversation, or during that discussion, he and Mrs. Carter and I have been involved in one attempt to remove a property from a discharge zone. In that instance, it was the individual who owned the property wanting to try to take it out of the discharge zone. And it was quite a lively affair. So I look forward to seeing you guys. That's about the nicest way I can say it. It was.
It would be difficult to top that, but I guess to Mrs. Carter's point, I guess my view is that the discharge zone ordinance, you don't need a permit to shoot outside if you're in the discharge zone. Just to go out and shoot, just to shoot your pistol or your rifle, there's no permit needed. You can't do it from dusk to dawn. And then there's this very vague portion which really circles back, the ordinance circles back on itself. It's very convoluted, and I'm not sure that, Mr. Fulton talked about unenforceable noise ordinance. I would love, not that I would in real life, but I would love to defend someone charged with that, because that is very vague and very subjective, and it's very confusing, and I think you'd have a difficult time convicting someone in a criminal matter based on that ordinance. So that's one of the things we discussed was trying to get that fixed. That's no succor for the folks on Charles and Mill, but that's the ordinance that we have. We have difficulty enforcing it. But it's a larger picture of, because many changes that we make would apply to the discharge zones all across the city. So it's not just this one instance, so. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I'll just add one thing, that when we had that discussion, thinking about that ordinance and applying it across the city, once it, that if we have somebody shooting commercially, because in that instance, I would think it would be substantially more than somebody shooting recreationally on their property if they're doing it for profit and, they're running a business that way. So as we have those discussions, maybe look at those types of things and keep that in mind.
To separate it.
Yes, definitely.
I agree, but the ordinance as written does not separate.
Right, and I'm saying as we go forward and have those discussions.
I'm not saying that I think the ordinance is badly in need of revision.
Yep. Any other discussion? Any other committee chair reports? All right, on to unfinished business. Ordinance 2019-4342 for a third reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Hicken. Kathy, when you're ready, third reading.
Ordinance 2019-4342, this is the third reading. An ordinance amending section 929.7 and 929.8 of the codified ordinances of the city of Pataskala, thereby increasing the water and sanitary sewer rates beginning on January 1st, 2020.
Discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move that we adopt ordinance 2019-4342.
Got a motion to adopt.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Higgins. Discussion? Yes.
I think, I wanted to mention that the utility company, or the utility committee worked pretty hard at this. I know not this year, only this year, but the year previous that I was not on it. But the idea to take this out over a long stretch of time and to do small increments of increase rather than one large increment of increase was really talked about, and I think worked through with the department so that, you know, this does work as far as bringing the utility company back into a positive slope on the budget. One thing I would mention that I think was also said at the utility committee over and over again is this also gives us a chance that if it's shown for some odd reason that in the future that for instance, you know, the 22 or the 24 increases, 2022, 2024 increases are not necessary, this ordinance could be revised to then not increase. So that was the whole idea, and I just wanted to make sure I had that out on the record. And I think that's a smart way of doing it, quite frankly.
I just want to echo that, Mr. Walter, that was the comment that I heard from citizens when I talked about that a couple of HOA meetings was, well, gee, if you find out that you don't need it going down the road, can you stop it? And I said, yes, if we find out that our projections are ahead, and we have other economies that can save us some money, that we wouldn't implement, we wouldn't continue to implement rate increases just because we can. So, thanks.
Any other discussion?
Having been the chair of that committee, I thank them, and once again, I thank Chris, to transition, you know, some of this was done under the previous, the person that had his job previously, to come in and transition and, work, I think the committee worked very well, with Mr. Schrock, and, yeah, it worked well, so I'm hoping that the way we've chosen is the best way to go.
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, we did go with option 7.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Okay, roll on the motion to adopt.
Powell?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Kicken?
Yes?
Lee?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Ordinance passes. Ordinance 2019-4341 for a second reading.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Powell. Discussion? And Kathy, would you read that please? Second reading.
Ordinance 2019-4341, this is the second reading, an ordinance to rezone properties located on Middle Ground Road Southwest, parcel number 064-068-322-00.009 and 064-068-087-00.000, totaling 136.32 plus or minus acres in the city of Pataskala from the high-density residential district R10 zoning classification to the planned development district PDD zoning classification.
Discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
This question is for Mr. Powell and Mr. Sheriff. I have a lot of concerns about some of the infrastructure planning with this, and what I don't want to do, we're only for a second reading, but what I don't want to do is hand you folks in the city a big old bushel of product here, okay? So, I don't know how other members of council feel. I just feel really uncomfortable with some of the things that are happening, both from the coordination with the township and the county, and then to some of the infrastructure issues that we talked about last time. So my thinking is, and Mr. King, maybe you may want to jump in, or the council members, obviously. I'm thinking about making a motion to table this to give you folks some more time to get these things ironed out, much as we did with the Heron Manor situation where they went back to PV, got ironed out, and came back and we approved it, and everyone seemed to be happy, so that's my question to you. What's your pleasure?
Would you like to have some more time, or?
To table it?
Yeah.
If we table it?
Yeah, that would be fine. If you'd like to table it, we're meeting with these folks tomorrow to work some things out because due to the unique situation up there, there's been several different ways to go about accomplishing the utility situation. So if you're comfortable tabling it, that would be fine.
Well, I would feel better about it, because we'll be back in 2 weeks, and that's it. 2 weeks comes for a third reading, we can table it then, but with the holiday coming up and so on, I don't know how other, that would be my pleasure.
Mr. Lee?
Mr. Lee.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Barstow that there's some issues. Most notably, it sounds like the sewer is the main one that need worked out, but I would have no problem tabling it, but I guess why not just let the second reading go and do it on the third? They've got a meeting tomorrow, maybe they'll have answers by the next meeting.
That's why I was asking if they thought they would get good answers, or they wanted more time.
I think if the third reading, I would definitely be for it if they don't have those answers.
Okay, fair enough.
Any other discussion on the second reading? Okay.
Mr. Hickman,
No, Mr. Hickman. No, I was gonna echo, like Mr. Barstow, I do have some of those similar questions, and I think you saw it when we were asking the owners that came to us last time. Sewer is definitely the issue. We can definitely get water there fairly easily. However, and it's divided into 3 pieces. One piece is fairly easy to get sewer to, the other 2 are not. I totally agree. I will not be here at the next meeting, so therefore I do not get the vote, and there is no voting by proxy. But if we don't get the answers we like, I would wholly support it. That's my little. Please go ahead.
You threw me off there raising both hands.
Sorry.
All right, on to resolutions. Resolution 2019-050. A resolution creating, establishing, and adopting the City of Pataskala Parks and Recreation Community Service Project Policy.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move that we table resolution 2019-050.
Got a motion to table.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Powell. Discussion? And that's because we're still working on some things, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, there are a number
It
of
needs
things.
to be revised.
There are a number of things that need to be.
Just so everybody knows. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Does this,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
does this
Suzanne.
policy include the Eagle Scout entity?
It's going to, that's part of the revisions that still have to happen is.
Having a clue.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. We want it to be all encompassing for community improvement.
All right.
projects.
Thank you. Just want to make sure that was
It
in there.
needs some more work is what you're.
Yeah, well, right now, it only talks about scouts. And as we know, like, this is controversial, but this is the fact of life. When the Boy Scouts of America decided that they would change their policy on who could be a scoutmaster, who could be a scout, a lot of organizations stopped sponsoring them. So, for example, my church stopped sponsoring the Boy Scout troop. It now sponsors another organization called Trail Life, which is similar to the Scouts. It looks just the same, except it's not Scouts. Those young men should have every opportunity to participate in this program, just as Boy Scouts of America Scouts do. So
Just
this,
a bigger umbrella? Is that what
it's a
we're
bigger
doing?
umbrella. Yes, but this just keeps talking about Boy Scouts, Boy Scouts, Boy Scouts. It doesn't. So it needs to expand
Right.
the inclusiveness there. So for young men who are not sponsored by a Boy Scout troop. Okay, that's my concern.
Okay, I had a motion and a second to table, discussion, and roll.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow.
Yes.
Resolution table. Resolution 2019-051, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to apply for, accept, and enter into a water pollution control loan fund, the WPCLF, agreement on behalf of the city of Pataskala for planning, design, and/or construction of wastewater facilities and designating a dedicated repayment source for the loan.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hicken and seconded by Mr. Powell. Discussion and roll.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 2019-052, resolution amending Resolution 2019-034 to increase the contract with Mankind LLC by $1,000 to remodel Old Town Hall wooden floors.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Powell,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Hayes. Discussion? And roll, please.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Any motions tonight? Yes, sir.
I do have a motion. I'd like to make the motion to commence the process to remove the Schaefer property adjacent to the Sugar Mill subdivision from the Pataskala City discharge zone.
Had a motion?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion? So, I just wanna ask you, Scott, I've heard this, I think, for 2 years. We've reached out to Mr. Schaefer. Is he out of state? Is he out of?
I don't believe it's been 2 years. I think the last time we discussed that, Mr. Lee, that was maybe a few months ago, but it's just phone tag and then, get going on to other things and just trying to get word back. We haven't,
Is he out of state?
No.
no.
He's not? Okay.
No, I don't believe so. But I'll continue to reach out to him to see if he would have any opinion pro or against.
Mailing address, phone number, something. Let's track him down. Yes, sir.
Can we send a registered letter to their tax?
We can.
Tax?
Yeah.
address?
PJ?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was gonna say, with this action being taken tonight, assuming it's approved, we will take every step, certified mail, everything to notify him of this with, potential meeting dates and everything.
Mr. Hickman?
I'm just interested in, I wanted that conversation to take place. This is somebody we're talking about removing his piece of property from the list and make sure that he is notified.
Okay, yes, Mr. Howard.
We're voting to begin the process.
Yes, just
What
begin.
does the process look like?
There would be an ordinance that is drafted and presented to council, and would go through 3 readings for the 30-day referendum period.
Okay.
So,
And proper notification to the homeowner.
Absolutely.
And giving him an opportunity to respond. It's not like, I don't think we're gonna have an ordinance on July 15th
No.
to start this. We're gonna make sure that he's been notified, if in proper fashion. He has actual notice, not necessarily constructive notice. He has actual notice that this is going on.
Yeah.
That's to protect the homeowner and to protect the city.
absolutely.
So, yes, yeah, okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Kathy, roll please.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Motion passes. Any other motions? All right, we'll move on to additional citizens' comments. If anybody wishes to speak, I need your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to discuss anything that we've discussed tonight.
Lee Guttentag, 280 Charles Road. I am not a lawyer, but there's some nice, brilliant lawyers up there. I understand the discharge zones and what Mr. Barstow was saying about why. But if he needed a permit or not, the Bullet Ranch did indeed make a contract with the city after the fact. I'm reading it, which I've read to you before. He wanted to put in an indoor shooting range, which is an accessory usage to the sale. Shooting range will have 10 4-foot indoor lanes. Goes on to say there will be no impact on the residents, there will be no excessive law. So even what it stated, if he signed this permit, if it was necessary or not, how is that not superseded when he signed it afterwards? And he made a contract or a handshake with the town. I don't understand how that doesn't supersede it. Even if he didn't need the permit, it was done. It may have been a very bad contract for him to sign, it might not have been a necessary one, but you know what? It was done. So I'm not understanding why that isn't being addressed. Secondly, nobody still has stated who is going to address the nuisance law. He keeps saying it needs to be addressed, but nobody has stood up and said who's going to deal with that and address it. I would like somebody to stand up on this council and say it's time to talk about that nuisance law to protect all of us who are screwed, excuse my language, I can use the swear jar, by being next to these down discharge zones. We're all moving into these towns. The Bullet Ranch was here after us. The Bullet Ranch lied in their zoning. The planning board might not have let them because there's also 3 references to sound dampening, so they were obviously worried about this. So once again, they lied to the township. When is all this gonna be addressed? I also wanna go back to the structures that they are using to shoot off of. They are not zoned to be there. You can answer this for me, Scott, even though I know you're not allowed to answer it right now. Don't all permitted structures for commercial use, well, they're permitted as archery, not shooting. So what is the definition of something to be used as shooting? Well, they weren't zoned for that because they're not permitted. So once again, how are they allowed to shoot off of these ramps? This isn't just shooting on the ground in a discharge zone, they're shooting off of permanent structures. All of this has still not been at all addressed in any of the conversations I've heard today, so now I'm even more frustrated. And how much longer do we have to wait till these concepts do get addressed? Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? All right, we'll go around the room. We'll start with Mr. Hicken.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to just say, thank you for all the work that was put in this fire. It's good to see everybody. And, I think it's that, the fact that they're back makes me happy. That's good enough for me. Thank you.
Mrs. Carter.
I only have one thing, just, in reference to, the opening of the meeting. When, you made reference to that you had bragged for years about the council being civil. I'm not sure how that's changed. I think we're still very civil. I think we have disagreements, which is healthy, because we should. So, which I'll continue to have disagreements and do my duty as a civil servant, but I just wanted to clarify what you were referencing.
I was referencing the last meeting where a couple of folks kind of slipped a little bit, and I wanted to make sure. I love the track record that we have. Like I said, I brag to people that we have good, respectful discussion, and I felt at the last meeting that we slipped a little bit, so I just brought it up.
Well, with all due respect, we're supposed to defend and advocate for our wards, and at times that's going to cause us to disagree and get heated. And I think that personally, we're not children, so we're all grown adults. So that's just my 2 cents.
And that would be my point. We're all grown adults and
So
we're all
we don't
professionals.
need
and-
scolded necessarily.
I'm sorry?
So we don't need scolded necessarily. That's just my opinion. That's all I have.
Point taken. Thank you. Mr. Powell.
No, I disagree with you, but I like you anyway. I don't have anything except, scheduling a development committee meeting for July 15th. We already had one tentatively on the schedule to discuss changes to the Sage Point subdivision. But we need to add a discussion about an impact fee program proposal that we have and impact fee as a whole. And then also like to begin discussion on possible implementation of design standards for Pataskala. But I was thinking about 6 o'clock, unless we have anything else, any public hearings, anything?
No.
Okay, so we can shoot for 6 o'clock if that works for Mel, Andy?
Yep.
Good, okay.
Got that? Kathy? Set?
Yes.
Very good. Anything else, Mike?
That's it.
Mr. Barstow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, a couple things on decorum. I can remember a time on council when it was not civil. My first few meetings were real eye-openers, and I wondered, I can remember sitting in the audience with Mr. Hicken before we got sworn in and telling Mr. Hicken that, you know what, it's not too late. We haven't been sworn in yet. So, things have gotten a lot better. I apologize last week for slipping, so we're not perfect, but I didn't take necessarily the mayor's as a scolding. I didn't take it that way, but again, Mrs. Carter, I disagree with you, but I still like you. So, we don't agree on much of anything else in the outside world, but on council, we agree on a lot of things and get along quite well. I wanna get back, and I hate to reopen this giant can of worms, but I'm going to anyway. On the discharge zone, okay, this is my opinion. The Bullet Ranch is in the discharge zone. They don't need any additional permission to shoot guns or rifles or pistols other than the ordinance that authorizes the discharge zone. They can't do it from dawn or from dusk until dawn, and then there's this very confusing part about reasonableness. They don't need permission from the Planning and Zoning Commission or the BZA or the Planning Department or anybody else. They have their permission in the ordinance. They can shoot it. And so if you live in the discharge zone, you can shoot your shotgun up in the air, you can shoot it at the ground, you can shoot it at targets, you can shoot it off the roof of your barn, you can shoot it from your garage, you can shoot it anywhere you like. There's nothing in that ordinance itself that restricts a manner or mode, other than what's in these few things I talked about, of shooting whatever you want to shoot. That's it. And so, I'm not saying there's not a problem that needs to be fixed, but the way that ordinance is written, if I live in the discharge zone, I can stand in my kitchen door and shoot things. I can stand in my shed and shoot out the roof. All kinds of things I can do. I don't need any additional permission because I live in the discharge zone. So, absent a change to that ordinance, in my opinion, the Bullet Ranch, if they want to shoot off ramps or whatever they are, I haven't been back there. I'm a customer of the Bullet Ranch, but I haven't gone shooting outside. If they want to do it there, they can do it there. They don't need any additional permission. That's it. So that's my opinion. So there we are. Thank you, Mr.
Well,
Mayor.
first of all, apology accepted. Okay, we'll just get rid of that thing right now, okay?
Okay.
And I was gonna say something to the general public, but I'm just gonna say it to you now. Those, so we don't get into a debate with the general public. The structures that were built were for viewing the folks that were shooting the archery. That is what those are for, and the places that they now have set up for skeet shooting are on the ground. So the structures, nobody's shooting in the air or from the air. The structures that were built were for the archery folks to go out and their friends and family to look at the target to see what they were hitting. So just clarification.
To me, it doesn't make any difference what they shoot from. They can. It's kind of like green eggs and ham. Okay, I do not like them here or there. I do not like them anywhere. I do not like them in a box. I do not like them with a fox. They can.
The structures are big decks that
Right.
people
It doesn't make-
use to watch.
To me, the
Not
way
to
the
shoot
way
from.
the ordinance is written doesn't make any difference.
I realize that. I'm just
Okay.
making a clarification
Sure. Okay, thanks.
so that maybe that lady can go home tonight and know that
Did you not listen
those
to
aren't
my,
being used
no,
for
did you
shooting.
not listen to my law
So-
report last time?
Mr. Walther, what do you got?
I have two things. One, I wanted to thank the volunteers that worked in a really, really, really hot concession stand on Saturday. We had tremendous pulled pork sandwiches that a lot of people enjoyed, and it was a good group of people. So it was definitely appreciated by the hungry crowd. The second thing I wanted to mention was there was a swim meet Saturday morning, and this I have never seen 300 kids participate in a swim meet before, but it was a well-oiled machine. It was fantastic to watch. The bigger picture I saw was all these people bringing in stuff from Kroger, stuff from McDonald's, stuff from other places, all the businesses within Pataskala. They could bring their own food, and I think that it was a very successful day for the businesses in Pataskala in general, from all the things that were happening throughout the day on Saturday. And those things are hard to measure how important they are, but the participation from the administration, from the volunteers, from the teams that participated, from the runners, from all those people on Saturday made Pataskala a better place. So everybody, thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to hear from anybody anymore that there's nothing to do in Pataskala between you and the pool and, stuff like the fireworks and the 5K and the farmer's market. there's plenty of things to do here, so. And I just wanna say, I was very disappointed when I heard you had pulled pork, because I never got up to get some, but you know what? I pulled in my driveway this afternoon and
I think you guys.
and Mr. Friel came over and handed me some leftover pulled pork, so I'm having pulled pork tonight, so very thrilled. Suzanne, what do you got?
I just wanna say I'm excited about Main Street. I appreciate Tim and Tommy and DJ's efforts last week and working with Samantha at Ivory Barn. I'm excited to see what happens on Main Street in the next year. It's gonna be fun, so that's all I have.
Tommy Lee.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion to adjourn, seconded by everybody. Mr. Barstow. Discussion and roll, please.
Walker?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Hayes? Yes.
Yeah.
Aiken?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Carter? Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
Doldrums and writing out, opinion or motions and everything else that I'm sure you can. I did. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Listen to me that last night, I had a lawyer who
So,
stated